What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. There's been a lot of talk around studio acquisitions. Who's Sony or Microsoft gonna buy next? Well, yesterday, news broke that Sony had spent $1 billion, but not on a brand new studio. We're gonna go over exactly what they spent that money on here today. Also, we are gonna be talking about Switch Sports. That's out at the end of this month, but previews went live yesterday, giving us a bit more insight into the game. And we're also gonna be talking about Super Mario 64, because a video went live the other day that was very impressive and now has fans hoping for the ultimate console version to be released. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps that a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're gonna start today with a big Switch sale that is currently going on at Best Buy. And I say it's big because it involves physical first-party games from Nintendo, which isn't a common occurrence, but we can see the promotion page here with Breath of the Wild at the top at $40. You're gonna see this with a lot of the titles from Nintendo. Most of them are just $20 off. So even like Miitopia, that's actually down to $30. Super Mario Odyssey at $40 there. Splatoon 2 at $40. And I also saw Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition at $40. And from what I remember with the other Xenoblade games, they did become rare physically over time. So it might not be a bad idea to grab one of those. And then Fire Emblem Three Houses at $40. Also, I noticed that some third-party games were on sale. Specifically, Final Fantasy XII is $15 on the Switch physically. That is an absolute steal, and I would pick that one up right away. Final Fantasy XII is already a really good game. But overall, pretty good sale. Like I said, it includes physical first-party Nintendo games. It's not something you see every day, so certainly check it out. Also, we've been talking a lot about Halo Infinite and lack of updates for the game. Well, it looks like the other Halo game on the Xbox, that being the Master Chief Collection, saw a pretty cool update go live yesterday. And there was one big thing they pointed out, and that's a new firefight mode for ODST, that being Flood Fight. It's exactly what it sounds like, where you'll have the Flood be enemies in these different firefight games. And it's pretty cool. It says that as they kind of come in, they'll bring like the fog with them to make like that creepy ambiance and everything. Pretty fun there. There were some other things that they added in, which included different tools for Forge mode, a lot of updates and improvements, mostly UI adjustments. They added campaign crossplay for Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST, which is pretty cool there. Campaign customization, Halo 4, new multiplayer medals in Halo 3, changes to the monthly challenges, new skulls, even for Halo 2, Halo 3, and Halo 3 ODST. There's a lot in kind of the update rundown that they have here over at Halo Waypoint, so I'll link that down below in the sources. But always fun to see these updates for a game like Master Chief Collection. I think when they moved away from seasons, a lot of people figured they would stop supporting it, but no, they've continued to update this game. And I'm looking at Halo Infinite, I'm hoping that it ends up on the same path as Master Chief Collection, because that game launched worse than what Halo Infinite did, and it worked its way up to being a fan favorite. So here's hoping. I'm crossing my fingers that Halo Infinite eventually gets to that point, probably years down the line. Oh, and do you remember the Playdate, the little handheld that has like the crank on the side? Well, it looks like Group 1, which I guess they're just the first people who ordered the Playdate, will have theirs start to ship out throughout this month. They had mentioned at the end of March that they were starting to send these out to the processing center, and then they would kind of move over to different orders to fulfill them. Well, it looks like press got their hands on them, were able to do some unboxings yesterday. I saw like Easy Allies, CNET, Game Explain, and many more do them. And it was pretty cool. One, I mean, it's a very simple unboxing. You open it up and there's the system, very minimalistic. But when you turn it on, there's a fun animation. It kind of introduces you to all the buttons and obviously the crank. So seeing these unboxings, I'm very excited to finally get mine. I assume in the next couple of months it'll arrive, but I don't know. We'll see. However, it's pretty cool. At least get a quick early look at it, as they weren't able to show any games at all currently. So we'll keep an eye out for, I guess, the next big video from these different outlets, specifically reviews, I'm sure, around the first wave of these games. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony investing $1 billion in Epic Games. Now, previously, they had invested, I believe, $250 million into Epic Games, and I guess they wanted to just make it $1.25 billion total. We did have a full press release from Epic. We can see this post up over on their website, saying this round includes investments from existing investor Sony Group Corporation, as well as Kirkby, the family-owned holding and investment company behind the Lego Group, with each party investing $1 billion respectively. All three companies highly value both creators and players and aim aim to create new social entertainment, exploring the connection between digital and physical worlds. Epic continues to have only a single class of common stock outstanding and remains controlled by its CEO and founder, Tim Sweeney. This from Sony CEO, Mr. Yoshida, saying, "As a creative entertainment company, we are thrilled to invest in Epic to deepen our relationship in the metaverse field." We'll be coming back to that one, a space where creators and users share their time. We are also confident that Epic's expertise, including their powerful game engine combined with Sony's technologies, will accelerate our various efforts such as development of new digital fan experiences in sports and our virtual production initiatives. And this, according to Tim Sweeney, saying the investment will accelerate our work to build the metaverse and create spaces where players can have fun with friends, brands can build creative and immersive experiences, and investors can build a community and thrive. Now, obviously, this is an investment from Sony, most likely with the idea that, all right, if Epic can actually create not just the metaverse, but the engine that the metaverse runs on, well, that $1 billion will grow exponentially. That's the biggest thing you're seeing now. One, metaverse, that word getting thrown all over the place, right? And I'll admit, the way it's defined for a lot of us who are really in tune with games, we don't really get it because we're like, yeah, this socializing in a virtual space, we've been doing that for a while since the trash talk on Halo 2. It's commonplace at this point. But I think the idea here with metaverse, this word or this marketing term, this buzzword, is to try to sell it to the mainstream audience who isn't really in tune with any of this stuff in gaming and doesn't realize that we've had things like Second Life for a long time now, or it's just socializing in general with VR. That's been going on for a while too now. So I'm thinking, all right, the person who just sees Facebook as text on their screen and then hears that there's a virtual world you go to in VR and you can actually interact with all your friends and see them, that's probably mind-blowing to them. Whereas to us, it's like, all right, I guess. And the biggest thing here is you have to realize Sony, more than a game company, right? I mean, they're doing things in TV, movie, music, all of these different parts there. And looking at it this way, Unreal Engine, one of the big things I think they're trying to do is break out into movies, an engine that can work outside of just creating games, and that'd be really big for them. But if they end up being the engine that is just commonly accepted for metaverse development, it doesn't matter how many different metaverses there are that Facebook or Meta tries to create or Microsoft tries to create or whoever. If they're building it with Unreal Engine, Epic's pretty much won completely then. In that case, Sony would be a pretty happy investor. I will say though, if Sony wants to take a shot at creating their own, just bring back PlayStation Home. You can even build it on Unreal Engine. There are several studios that Sony has now that are already working with Unreal Engine. I'm sure it's Unreal Engine 5 because Haven and Firesprite seem to be working on projects that are gonna be years in development still from now. So that's the way I would see it if I'm Sony. Let's try bringing back Home and let's see if we can make it fit into this parent metaverse future, whatever that ends up looking like. Let me know what you guys think about this investment, if it was smart by Sony to invest into what sounds like Unreal Engine's big push for the metaverse, or should they have just bought a different game studio to bring into PlayStation Studios? Next up, let's talk about an extremely impressive video that popped up the other day. This having to do with Super Mario 64, and it's from Kaze, who's done a lot of really cool work just in Mario 64 specifically, like the portal gun or multiplayer, but they've also created a lot of mods and new content for the game, which it's fun to think about that because Mario 64 for a lot of us is this really fond memory of going from 2D on the Super Nintendo to 3D on the Nintendo 64, and Mario jumping out of the pipe and it's being super impressive with the joystick and all this. Really defined 3D gaming and how you would traverse kind of that world with the Nintendo 64. And it's something people still look back on to this day as defining 3D gaming. But the problem we've had with Mario 64 is it's not necessarily well optimized, and there are several reasons for that. One, at the time, C, which it was developed on, the language, was new, and they weren't exactly able to take advantage of things like the RAM expansion pack or even patch the game in general. Well, Kaze decided to take it upon themselves to rewrite basically all of the code in the game, or a vast majority of it, as they've gone through and worked to optimize it further. And some of the results are very impressive to the point where they're seeing 45 to 60 frames per second, even in heavily modified games, which means if they want to keep it at a locked 30, you just shoot above that, maybe at 40 frames per second. Even in something like multiplayer where they have Luigi running around alongside of Mario, so you and a friend can technically play the game together, still having a pretty good frame rate there, cap it at 30, a very smooth experience. Which, funny enough, seems to be their big reasoning for doing this, is adding all these different mods and basically shaping the game like it's not supposed to be, cause some issues, which the game itself will stutter at times. Normally it runs at 30, like just stock, but it'll dip down like dire docks or different levels you go into or different effects on screen. So what K's wanted to do was just make it locked 30, even with all the different things they're doing. And they found that some of the optimization actually pushed up to 60 frames per second, which now has a lot of people hoping that there could be an end goal where Mario 64 on just a stock standard Nintendo 64 actual hardware could touch 60 frames per second. Now, the big thing here is you would have to use like an EverDrive. This isn't necessarily just going to be on a cartridge or anything. I mean, I guess someone could do a reproduction cart, like we've seen those on Amazon, and I've done videos on them, so I guess that's possible. But it would leverage that expansion pack, which isn't as big of a deal now as it was then. Considering the game came out alongside the Nintendo 64, they weren't able to patch the game and say, oh, we can fix all of this stuff. We'll push a patch through the online service that doesn't exist yet. So yes, K's is taking advantage of a lot of advancements that we've seen in development with the programming language, but also just obviously online and be able to push this stuff out to people. It was a really well done video, by the way. I would check it out. Went over a lot of things in layman terms. It's best to explain it to us, and even went over some of the reasons why they ran into these limitations back in the 90s, but certainly worth a watch. And I'll keep up to date with this, because if we get to a point where there is a Mario 64 patch that you can download, apply to a ROM, put it on EverDrive, drop it in 64 with actual hardware, and play it, yeah, I might check that out in a video. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo Switch Sports. It's out at the end of this month, and it's basically Wii Sports for the Switch. But we did get previews going live yesterday, and there were certainly some mixed reactions from this, seemingly depending on which game they were playing. Like, for example, bowling. Everyone seems sold on this, and it seems like a legitimate evolution from Wii Bowling, where it's much more accurate and fine-tuned to where you have to be pretty on point with your motion and everything, throwing the ball or rolling it down the lane. And it sounds like even the button itself, you don't let go of it to throw the ball or let go of the ball. You actually hold it all the way through, which some people were speculating that, oh, Nintendo probably saw some of those pictures of broken TVs, which that was a big thing back then. People were doing it as jokes and memes and stuff online, but there were probably some actual broken flat screens on the walls when someone just launched a Wii remote into the TV. But bowling seems to be everyone's favorite game type, and that's, to be honest, all I'm really buying this for, which sounds weird, but bowling is a lot of fun, especially if you have some people around the house who can play, or in this case, go online and apparently even unlock different gear for your character. You can also unlock it offline, so if you're not able to go online, not a huge deal there. But then went to things like volleyball, and that was definitely split, as it just seemed very easy, like you're basically just doing the one motion the whole time, and that's kind of it. Tennis also seem to be the same as what we've done with Wii Sports, where it's just a basic swing motion, and unfortunately they didn't really take much from something like Mario Tennis Aces, where at least there was a bit more going on there. But then on the other side with badminton, seemed to get a lot of praise, mostly because there was more control when it came to the racket. You can do things like drop shots, so that sounds like it would annoy some people on the other side of the net. However, they also talked about soccer or football, and sound like there was a lot more going into that, to where you may not get people who are just kind of doing pick up and play. Like, you have to use like the leg strap to kind of track your leg when you're kicking the ball, and kind of looked like Rocket League a few times there when there was some gameplay being shown. So we'll see how that one turns out. Golf, not available yet. That's going to be after release, which is the thing that Nintendo's been doing, where they have a set number of characters in a game, or modes, or in this case, games themselves, and then release them afterwards with kind of this mini roadmap that they come up with. It seems like a common trend with definitely their sports titles, but overall, a $40 game that's supposed to be basically the Wii Sports for the Switch. I'm just happy to hear that bowling seems to be where most of their focus was, and that's probably what I'll be playing like 90% of the time here anyway. But let me know what you thought about some of the previews for Switch Sports that went up yesterday. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, a very ambitious LEGO game that I picked up day one, and you know what? It's actually pretty fun. The LEGO games prior to this were very simplistic in nature and Sure, they were geared towards younger gamers or just families in general who can play these together. But like the Skywalker Saga, there's a lot going into this, whether it's the skill trees or just the number of collectibles that can be overwhelming at times. However, I figured this would do very well in the sales charts, and so far it hasn't disappointed. We can see, for example, the top 10 over in the UK, starting with LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga dethroning Kirby and the Forgotten Land, that falling to number 2, FIFA 22 at 3, Pokemon Legends Arceus at 4, we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Elden Ring, Gran Turismo 7, Animal Crossing New Horizons, WWE 2K22, and then Minecraft. Looking at the split, looks like it sold the best on the Nintendo's Switch, that being 63%, the PS4 at 21%, and the Xbox One at 16%. A bit more information though on how it did to previous LEGO games is from Christopher Dring, saying LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is the biggest launch for a LEGO game ever in the UK, even before we consider digital sales. Sales are up 8.4% on the previous biggest launch, that being LEGO Indiana Jones from 2008. A bit more here, saying in term of box sales, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is the second fastest selling game of the year in the UK, behind Pokemon Legends Arceus, which means it sold better than Elden Ring. There you go. Apparently it took LEGO Star Wars to show up to dethrone second place for Elden Ring there, and probably just right behind Pokemon Legends Arceus. But it's LEGO, it's certainly built towards general audience, and it's Star Wars, and on top of that, it is a high-polished, high-quality game overall. So I'm enjoying my time with it. Seems like it's a game that's going to take me a long time to get anywhere near 100%. I probably won't ever get there because like I picked up one of those bricks, the blue bricks, and it was like, congratulations, you now have like 30 of 1,100 bricks. I'm like, that's a lot of bricks to pick up, but the skill trees are there. The co-op is a lot of fun, depending on the platform you get it on. Heard on the Switch, it's a little rough. Hopefully there's some patches for it, but I'm playing on the Xbox and it seems good enough. So overall, hey, big sales so far for LEGO Star Wars, kind of expected, but we'll see how it does as we go through things like the NPD sales charts. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you buying Nintendo Switch Sports? 16% said yes, getting it ASAP, 29% said yes, but I'll wait for a sale, and then 55% said no, I'm not interested. I really do think it comes down to if you were a really big fan of Wii Sports. Like I loved bowling and I loved boxing, which is kind of a shame that there's no boxing, but I guess Chambra kind of replaced that. I don't know, boxing was fun. But if you have fond memories of bowling or tennis or golf or any of these, you'll probably pick it up somewhat for nostalgia, but also if you have some people around the house that would get a kick out of playing it, especially if they're people that don't normally play games, you want to kind of bring them into that world. This obviously is a very good social, like mainstream style game, but I'm certainly picking this one up day one to check it out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Delicious saying, the potential for Star Wars in Kingdom Hearts 4 has piqued my interest. Haven't cared for the series at all historically, but I'm curious to see where they will go with that. That's the biggest thing I saw people bring up on Twitter. I didn't really think too much about it, but I'm like, well, yeah, I guess Disney, sure, why not? They could bring that in. Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts. And that's the world that I'm sure a lot of people would like to see Sora, Donald, and Goofy show up to, get the lightsaber Keyblade or something. Yeah, that would be fun. Even me, who's not like a big Kingdom Hearts fan at all, like I'm very casual when it comes to that franchise. I mean, Star Wars in there, I'd be very curious to check out that world and see how they have Sora and them interact with some of the different Star Wars characters. What part of the time period, the timeline do they show up in? Is it closer to like episode 9 or is it like episode 1 with Jar Jar Binks, or they drop them in with Luke in episode 4? Again, a lot of questions, and that is probably a world that a lot of people hope is in Kingdom Hearts 4, but we'll see how Disney treats it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Sony investing $1 billion in Epic Games? You think that was a good move, or should they have spent the money elsewhere? And what about Super Mario 64 with all those optimizations? Could we see a version of the game running at 60 FPS on a Nintendo 64 console? And then Switch Sports, we saw the previews yesterday. Are you picking up a copy later on this month? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.